Today I was out switching out signs and putting up my new brokerage signs. And while I was doing that, it got me thinking about the different covenants around the area and the questions we get in a situation we just had with covenants. So in this video, I'm going to talk about some of that and let you know what you need to think about if you're buying a place here in Montana. One of the things I hear all the time is people, they want properties without covenants. And I get that. Nobody likes laws, but covenants aren't necessarily a bad thing. And when you do get into an area like this one that has covenants, you're just going to want to know what they say. A lot of these neighborhoods are older, so you'll get some weird covenants or some very old covenants that you just need to know what you're looking at when you go through them. In this particular area, you're going to have covenants that protect this lake. So this little lake here, this is Middle Foys Lake, you're not allowed to have boats with motors on them. Obviously, something you may want to know if you're big into water skiing. They're also going to have covenants here about the setbacks from the lake, how close you can build to the lake. They're going to have covenants on how close you can build to your neighbor. Some places are going to have covenants on how big of a house you can build. So there's all kinds of these things that you're going to want to know about. And I'm going to take you to another area here in a minute that has its own set of covenants. We're also going to talk about some issues that came up with some of my recent buyers where they ran into some covenant problems, and we'll talk about that. At this subdivision, we're way out of town, and there's going to be a whole set of other covenants. Like this area you see here, as we drive through this subdivision that's out of town, there's all kinds of rules about fences and horses and how many horses you can have and the type of shops you can build or you can't build. So when you get to subdivisions like this, all these things are going to come into play, and it's really something you should figure out. And that brings me to the story of my clients that I just had. They were looking at a piece of property and they have some kids, and one of their kids has goats for 4-H and they wanted to have goats. Well, sure enough, in the covenants for this particular subdivision, they didn't allow animals other than pets, dogs and cats. So they were concerned about that. Well, once we did a little digging, it turns out that the subdivision that they were buying in is kind of weird to call it a subdivision, even though that's what it is. There's only 2 lots. So it turned out the other lot in the subdivision, that guy was doing things that weren't allowed either. So when we looked into it, that's when we found there's only 2 lots, and these covenants were written 20 years ago by people that don't even live there anymore. So my concern is that you can never get rid of these, but I called the title company, and as long as both owners agree, they can either change the covenants or get rid of them altogether. So they ended up buying the place, and they weren't too worried about it because, like I said, the other guy was doing things that were against the covenants as well. One thing that they need to worry about or think about, and I told them this, and they are aware of it, is that if that one neighbor ends up selling, somebody could come in and say, hey, you're not following the rules if they start following the rules. So things like that you just need to keep in mind. They don't always work out that way. Sometimes you get some people that are very stringent on the covenants. Other times you get people that could care less what they say. Because one of the things you can run into here a lot of times is if there's a subdivision that has covenants, like the one I just told you about, they have covenants but no HOA. So who's going to enforce it? You can call the sheriff, you can call the county, but they have much better things to worry about than, your neighbor left his trash cans out or whatever you want to complain about. So anyway, these are just all things to keep in mind if you are buying in an area that has covenants, and most places do. The thing that, back to people not wanting laws around here, again, I get that. I understand, nobody wants someone telling them what to do, but, covenants aren't always a bad thing. If you do buy a place where there's no zoning, no covenants, and you're thinking, oh, this is great. Well, you have to keep in mind that the neighbor also has the same lack of rules. So if they want to pile junk cars in their yard, they can. If they want to dig a giant hole, run machines, whatever they may want to do, you know, they can do that. So keep that in mind if you're looking at places and you think you don't want any covenants. Another reason people ask me about some of the covenants and why some of these covenants are here. And if you're coming from out of state and you're not used to this type of area and actually this type of wildlife around here, like this particular subdivision doesn't allow chickens. And people are like, well, you know, why don't they allow chickens? Well, it's because we have grizzly bears here and they really enjoy chicken. So people get their chicken coops robbed all the time from bears. And because these people don't want to attract more bears than are already here, they don't allow chickens. So another little weird Montana thing that you need to think about if you are buying in a place, check the covenants, ask why the covenants are there, and you'll learn a lot about the different areas. And one last big thing that people ask about and they want or don't want is, are you allowed to shoot guns on your own property? A lot of places, there will be rules about that. A lot of places there won't. So again, if you want to shoot your gun, it's, you know, accepted in a lot of areas, but you may not want your neighbor who shoots his gun all the time and having to listen to that. So anyway, these are all things to just keep in mind, keep an eye out for, and think about before you buy a piece of property.
Thank you for watching our video. Please call, text, or email for more information, and don't forget to watch our other videos about Montana.